Call the meeting to order. Good evening, everybody. Welcome this evening to our public hearing. This is a public hearing that's called into the bylaws that will be introduced in a moment by the Deputy City Clerk. Council for the City of Coquitlam has given first reading of these bylaws and has directed that we hold a public hearing. Staff from the City's Planning and Development Department will first present a summary of each proposed bylaw, and then the floor will be opened to anyone who wishes to express views on the proposed bylaw. Those who pre-registered will be given the first opportunity to speak, and I see at least one person pre-registered for one of the items. And then after those people have spoken, anyone else will be allowed to speak. I stress to you all that this is a public hearing and it's an opportunity to make your views known to council members. Council members are here with an open mind to listen to your input. No one has prejudged the outcome of these applications, but I have to make sure that we all understand. It's not a question and answer period. It's not an opportunity to debate the merits of the proposed bylaws with council members, with staff, or anyone in the audience who might be opposed to your particular point of view. These are structured by the acts that run the way in which municipalities run. So we ask you to restrict your comments to the proposed bylaw, be as brief and concise as possible. We're asking speakers to respect a 5-minute time limit in order that everyone can be allowed to speak. You can speak more than once, but each time is limited to 5 minutes. You must also make sure that you're always bringing up new thoughts, not just repeating things that you've already made known to council. We ask that every member be respectful of each speaker and that each speaker be allowed to make his or her points without interruption. Please refrain from clapping, booing, cheering any of the presentations made this evening. I'll skip that part. Council may not receive any additional information after the close of an item. So if you have any written materials that you want to have form part of the public record for tonight's meeting, please make sure you hand it to the Deputy City Clerk prior to the end of that item. After the end of the item, Council is restricted and not able to receive any additional items. I'll now call upon Ms. Lohr to introduce the bylaw and Planning Development staff to make the presentation on the first item.
The first item on tonight's public hearing agenda is bylaw number 4095-2010, which relates to a rezoning application for the property located at 1404 Coast Meridian Road.
I forgot to mention that following the conclusion of tonight's public hearing, we'll be having a regularly scheduled council meeting in order to give further consideration to the items on tonight's public hearing agenda.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. Item number 1, the site is located on the west side of Coast Meridian Road between Millard Avenue and Highland Avenue. The site is designated small village single family to the west and large village single family to the east. Zoning on the site and to the south and east is RS2, suburban family, one family suburban residential. Zoning to the north is RS8, large village single family residential, and to the west is RS7, small village single family residential. The site currently has one single family dwelling unit located on it, and the applicant is seeking to rezone the site from RS2 suburban residential to RS7 small village single family residential to facilitate development of 5 residential lots from the 2 existing lots fronting Princeton Avenue.
Thank you. Are there any speakers to this item? Second time, are there any speakers to this item? Third and final time, are there any speakers to this item? I'll declare this item closed. Ms. Clerk.
The second item on tonight's agenda relates to bylaw number 4098-2010, which is a rezoning application for the property located at 7 Burbidge Street.
Your Worship and members of Council, my name is Michael Doywall, Development Planner with the City of Coquitlam. Item number 2, the subject site is south of Rogers Avenue and located at 7 Burbidge Street, specifically units 103, 104, and 105 of Building D, located along the eastern property line. The site is designated industrial in the southwest Coquitlam area plan. The site is currently zoned M9 industrial. Zoning directly to the south and southeast is P5 special park. To the north and northeast, M1 general commercial, and to the west, M2 service industrial. The units are currently unoccupied, and the adjacent sites are used for industrial uses such as warehousing and distribution, associated office uses, sales, and manufacturing. The applicant is seeking to rezone the subject site from M9 light industrial to M3 special industrial. The proposed rezoning of units 103, 104, 105 of Building D at 7 Burbidge would facilitate the development of an indoor badminton facility containing 12 playing courts. If the rezoning is approved, a covenant will be placed on the subject site to ensure the units revert back to M9 light industrial should the badminton facility relocate or discontinue use.
Thank you. Before you leave, Councillor Reamer has a question, I guess a clarification.
Thank you. I attended the site today, and I was actually attended it looking from the parking perspective. I wanted to know, there is a number of what's called authorized parking just on the south edge of the property there, just across from Maccabee Park. I'm wondering if you can tell me who owns that authorized parking in that area. So that is in addition to the 13 spots that are in the front of the building.
Someone's going to come up with a parking plan, I guess.
Building?
Yeah.
Your question, Councillor, is with regard to designated parking spaces?
Right, just on that red line, actually.
This area along here?
Yeah.
Undesignated parking spaces that belong to the owner of 7 Burbidge, and they're undesignated spaces that are meant to be allocated on a case-by-case or as-needed basis for tenants within the buildings on the site.
Okay, so that would apply to this site. Thank you.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Councillor Reid. One moment, please. We'll just get your microphone going here.
Obviously they're for that use. But is there any guarantee, I mean, if it's for all of the people in there, there's quite a few businesses around there. Mm-hmm. So I would like to know, did the proponent say that he had secured any of these parking spots for the badminton court?
I believe that they have secured 20 designated spaces for those units.
Hey, hold on. And in addition to the 13 that are specifically allocated to his units?
Here?
No, there's 13. There's 9 in the front, and then where the little tiny red line is, there's 4 more, I think. That's the 13.
My understanding is that there's additional space going to be designated on the back side of the building. These are undesignated, but indicated to be made available to the prospective tenant.
Do we have anything in writing from the owner?
I believe we do. Is that correct, Michael? Yep.
We do?
We do.
And what does it say? How many spots?
A total of 55 spaces, 20 of which were to be designated for the tenant space, and the remaining 35 are the undesignated along the river made available to the tenant.
Okay, I worry about the parking at Maccabee Park, because I don't go down there with the dogs quite often, and sometimes you can't park there because the overflow parking from this development here goes into Maccabee Park, and there's never any parking, so I have difficulty with that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Asmussen.
Erica, you said our parking analysis, we had a letter come in, would say they would need 36 spaces to facilitate this type through our bylaws. Are they, so they apply, they're covering our needs of our bylaw?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Seeing no, Councillor Asmussen?
No, it should be.
No, okay. Seeing no other questions from council, I'll ask, are there any speakers to this item? Second time, are there any speakers to this item?
There is a speaker on the speakers list.
Oh, there is actually, yes. Sid Sidorik. That was short. Sid? Nope. Okay. Did we get any indication whether Mr. Sidorik might be late or?
No, he did not indicate that he would be late.
Are there any other speakers to this item? Last time? Nope. I declare this item closed.
Item 3 on tonight's agenda, it relates to bylaw number 4096-2010, which is a rezoning application for the property located at 3368 David Avenue.
Okay, just before we do that, Councillor Asmussen, you have to activate, please.
Thank you very much. This is a potential conflict that's within the vicinity of my home, so I'll be stepping out on this one. Thank you.
Yeah, it's within a mile or two from Councillor Asmussen's home, so. Ms. Clerk. You good? Okay. Ms. Timoney.
This site is located on the southwest corner of Coast Meridian and David Avenue. The site is designated in the city official community plan as large village, single family, and with 2 environmentally sensitive area designations for East and West Watkins Creeks. Zoning to the site, on the site and to the south is RS2, one-family suburban residential. Zoning to the west is RS8, large village, single-family residential, and to the east, C2, general commercial. The site currently has 1 single-family detached dwelling unit. The applicant is seeking to rezone the site from RS2, one-family suburban residential to RS8, large village, single-family residential, and P5 special park to facilitate development of 2 residential lots and to establish a streamside protection and enhancement area.
Okay. Are there any speakers to this item? Second time, are there any speakers to this item? Third and last time, any speakers to this item? Seeing none. Seeing none. Nope, don't see any.
Frida Hart, 3507 Victoria Drive in Northeast Coquitlam. I just have 3 rather general questions on this property. Is the pond that's, I suppose, a water retention pond it is it going to stay? And if so, who's responsible for cleaning it? Because I don't think it's ever been cleaned yet. And the second question, who will be overseeing the creeks on this property and maintaining the fences that are going to be put up? And the bridge over East Watkins Creek, will this be put in by the applicant, and if so, who maintains it in the future?
Thank you very much for those wonderful questions.
You're very welcome.
I see the planning staff writing them down and not rushing toward the microphone. Mr. McIntyre.
I was hoping the other staff would be quicker on the draw than me. Thank you, Your Worship. Let me try to address some of the questions, and if need be, the applicants, an agent for the applicants here can speak more to the fencing and bridge crossing, but I'll get to that in a minute. The water quality pond, it showed up in the air photo that Erica showed a moment ago. There's you see on the north property line along David Avenue frontage, there's a notch there, and this is the site of one of our water quality ponds in the northeast. It's my understanding. Thank you. Is now part of the city's infrastructure drainage system, so it should be city forces that maintain that. We can check as to the frequency of that, but my understanding is it is being maintained by the city. Whether that will be retained in the future, I think it is one of the ponds I think they feel will likely be necessary, but the drainage plan for that area, the stormwater management plan for that area, was to put in these ponds and then monitor over time, and as development happened, see which ones would be still necessary in the long term. There may be some surplus ponds that could be closed out, but I don't believe this is one of them. This is at a pretty key location below a major road, so I suspect this would remain for in perpetuity probably. Maintain the fences along the creek. My understanding is, and Eric can jump in please, the SPIAs identified by the applicant's QEP, Qualified Environmental Professional, those SPIAs, Streamside Protection Enhancement Areas, are remaining in private ownership. They would be protected by restrictive covenant. I think one of the recommendations the QEP has made is that fencing be placed along those SPIA boundaries just to delineate that, and I believe that there is a responsibility for the property owner to maintain that fencing over time. The bridge crossing, I believe at this point is going to be a private access point onto the property, and on that basis that would be maintained by the property owner themselves. Eric, anything you could add or did I overlooked? Like that concludes our comments, Your Worship.
There was one additional question as to who did you get to who maintains the. When was the last time it was cleaned?
The water quality pond. I don't know the frequency. We can check on that, and I can get back to Claire on that.
But it ends up being cleaned by the city. It's now on city property. It's a city amenity.
That's correct, Your Worship.
Hard to call it an amenity, a city infrastructure.
Okay. May I say good luck?
The speaker wishes us luck. Are there any other speakers to this item? Now, this is the third and last time. Any other speakers to this item? On that, I declare this item closed.
Okay, Your Worship, I'm just going to grab a...
Took a vote and narrowly passed that we should get you back.
Okay, final item onto this evening's agenda is relates to bylaw number 4069/2009, which is a text amendment. And the amendment is to remove existing development application procedures, establish new exemptions for development permits, and designate new areas for temporary commercial and industrial use permits.
Your Worship, members of council, this city-initiated zoning bylaw text amendment would remove the existing development application procedures in Part 4 of the zoning bylaw to establish new development procedures in a separate development procedures bylaw, and to create new exemptions for development permits and designate new areas for temporary commercial and industrial use permits. The proposed development permit exemptions will eliminate the requirement for a development permit for additions or alterations with a construction value of less than $50,000 to an existing building. The temporary commercial and industrial use permit areas would be designated for the A3 agricultural and resource zone outside the agricultural land reserve, all commercial, service station, and industrial zones, and the comprehensive development zone. The bylaw would also provide criteria for council to review and consider these temporary use permits on a case-by-case basis. Staff are recommending council give second, third, and fourth reading to bylaw 4069.
Councillor McDonnell.
Thank you. Either through to Eric or to Jim, does this include in our industrial zones or commercial zones for a manufacturing plant to be able to have a showroom attached to it?
Ms. Tiffany.
Through your worship, In terms of a showroom, the temporary use permits, industrial use permits, are intended to allow short-term uses in areas which would not otherwise be provided for in the zone. So, for example, if a showroom isn't currently provided for in the zone, then a temporary use permit could be one avenue that somebody could pursue adding a showroom to their use, but it would only be on a temporary basis. The Local Government Act limits it to 2 years.
If I could, Your Worship, just to add on to that, we are also doing a review of our industrial zones right now, and that's when we're looking at the percentage of retail space in the industrial building, the percentage of or component of office space. So we're going through that review right now. We hope to have some material through to committee and council later this spring.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Are there any speakers to this item? Second time, are there any speakers to this item? It's the last item. Are there any further speakers to this item? Seeing none, we'll declare the public hearing closed.
We'll now move on to the regular council.